Welcome to the Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm Richard Fields. On the program today, John Cameron, the author of Rewill and Rewire and development officer at Pacific Legal Foundation. Michael Murphy, author of The Government, Editor's Choice on Amazon last year, and also Philip Lorea, editor of Minute Dot, about investments, I'm thinking, right?
Correct.
Correct, okay.
And I think America is going to pay a horrible price for having a fear-based government should he actually become in charge of the whole thing. And I think the same problem rests with Clinton in a different way. But definitely in Trump's campaign, I think Americans have to look at, we do the right thing here in America, and then if the world likes it, they'll absorb it. We can't make the world be America. We've got to learn to quit isolating ourselves. We can't, this country is built on immigration, it's built on people coming in, and we can't offend that process, which is really our key to growth. There does have to be that the great minds of the world coming here, which is what's been going on. They leave, when they get the money, they leave other countries, they come here.
And that's, of course, great. And Trump, as you mentioned, has made a campaign out of attacking Muslims, attacking Mexicans, attacking immigrants, attacking a woman's right to choose. Hillary, on the other hand, is attacking taxpayers by essentially echoing all of the worst promises that Bernie Sanders made, free education, free this, free medical care, free that. The vice presidential nominee on the Republican side, Pence, has attacked gays, he's attacked drug users. My question is this an already made coalition of the oppressed for Gary Johnson to capitalize on? Republican candidate Philip?
It certainly can be. What the irony of this election is that the perception is growing that Hillary Clinton is sort of the ultra right-wing war hawk, kill 'em all kind of gal. And that where the Republicans are scoring points, no doubt, in this convention is pointing out all of her, whether you want to call them mistakes in her foreign policy or what have you, but they are pinning that tail right on Hillary for the Middle East, and I think rightfully so.
But also saying, and we'll do even worse.
Exactly. And so you've got the ultra right-wing conservative war hawk running as the Democrat. And then the problem that the Republicans are having with Trump is that he's a little too liberal for them. He came out today and made a comment to the New York Times that if there was an attack of a NATO country, that he might not necessarily automatically join the fray. Trump is seen as a little less interventionist.
Except when he's not, when he's saying he's going to,
but oddly enough,
nuke ISIL.
He seems to say some things for
he's all over the place.
But we know where Hillary is.
Yeah.
So we have this odd situation where the two main parties, where you have the Republican who is sort of left of the Democrat
on foreign policy
and domestic policy when it comes right down to it. When you talk about trade. NAFTA, those are things that are pinned on the Clintons. The TPP, that's pinned on Hillary and Obama. Those are the anathema to free trade. Whenever you have an agreement of trade, is by definition
you say
not
liberal.
free.
You're really saying populist.
No, what I'm saying is
anti-free trade is populist.
A trade agreement is anti-free trade by definition.
Well, this one is, yeah.
They all are. By definition, when you prefer one, you exclude another. So Hillary seems to be the more, the more conservative of the two. Republicans are having a hard time with Trump because he's not religious enough. They made it. That was why he chose Pence, was for Pence to stand up there and say, "I'm a Christian." And so you've got this weird election where the closest thing to a liberal of those two is Trump, and then you have an actual liberal, Gary Johnson. And
liberal in the classical sense.
It's in the sense of the word liberal. I know I hate, classical liberal suggests that there was another kind of liberalism, and the new liberalism is not liberalism.
Well, it's socialism, but yes.
But in any case, what you have is a guy who's saying, look, I am a liberal. I am in the sense of the Jeffersons, Monroes, and Madisons. We don't get involved in foreign wars. I am a liberal when it comes to the free exchange of goods and services, a la Adam Smith. And so all of a sudden, he resonates a little bit. He gets on these Colberts and the Mahers and all of those shows, and people look at him and say, you know, this guy's decent. He's got a good record. If he can get to that debate stage, this could well be his
Well,
moment.
and he's at 13% in the latest CNN poll, and this is in polls that are essentially rigged against him, because the way the pollsters are doing it is they're saying, first they're presenting a dual choice, Clinton versus Trump, and then as an afterthought they're saying, well, what about if we include Johnson and maybe Stein? And when they do the second question, including Johnson, then he gets up to 13% in the latest polls, and his range has been anywhere from 8 to 12 to now 13. 15%, according to the rules, unless the debate commission changes the rules, gets him in the debates. And if he gets on the debate stage, which of course he maintains is critical for success, he gets into a position where he can in fact win among millennials. He can win, I would guess, with enough publicity among the immigrant class, whether it's Muslim
he's
or
polling
Hispanic.
#1 among the military.
He's polling #1 among
Which
military.
has been pretty consistent for
Which,
libertarians.
yeah, which makes a whole lot of sense, because they're the ones that whose lives are on the line.
Their
with
lives
all of
are on the
these
line, and they
dumb,
tend to look at what's going on.
Yeah,
And he's polling, and this is an old poll that you quoted me, wasn't it? Among millennials, he's
yeah.
at the
He's
same
number.
percentage.
Yeah,
with
he's
Hillary.
beating Hillary among
And
millennials.
he will be the only adult in the room. So
Yeah, and certainly
that-
the only adult acting person.
Well,
in
I
the
think
room.
that two things. The American people have lost their confidence that they can actually run a candidate for them. And so they're settling on what they're told to vote for right now. And I think the libertarians had the right point in the beginning when they used to do the chart. So many Americans didn't realize they were libertarians.
And of course,
that's
that's
how they really believe in
That's-
their heart.
That's
That's
Johnson's
Gary's
phrase.
point.
That's his catchphrase.
Yeah.
You're a
I'm a
libertarian.
libertarian. You are too. If you probably are too.
That's
take,
right.
Take the
Well,
I
and what's
side with that.
interesting is he is not taking a share from one of those sort of knocks on libertarians was always that they were viewed as a conservative. They were wannabe Republicans, or vice versa. That
pulling-
those
he's pulling-
two were
yeah.
grouped.
I've heard Republican lobbyists say exactly that.
Yeah.
He's pulling equally from Trump and from Clinton.
And a little bit more
And
from
one of the things that he did very smartly when Bernie endorsed Hillary, which really pissed off his supporters, he said, hey, I side with Bernie 73% of the time.
Exactly.
Of course, it's not on economic issues. It's all on the foreign policy and civil liberties issues,
Exactly.
which is fine. He's pulling from the left, from the Bernie Sanders and the anti-war crowd. He's pulling from the right, from the people who are free traders, who are low tax, small government, real laissez-faire economic conservatives. And he's pulling from the middle by being the sane person in the room. You've got a guy that is running a Twitter campaign in Donald Trump, which is, I've never seen anything like it. And then you've got Hillary Clinton, who is could be running a campaign from her jail cell, if it was a just world.
Wells and Johnson are running on a basis that most American people could really relate to. We all want corruption out of government. We want waste out of government. We want overspending out of government. And I think what they offer is that the problem that we see in California is that here government intervenes in everything and it cannot do its fundamental things well. We have heavy traffic problems and infrastructure problems with our roads. We have poor school situation throughout California.
Rich teachers,
very
poor schools.
expensive, very huge benefit programs that don't get reduced in times of hardship. And so we've got all these problems in California where they can't do crime prevention or protection, they can't do schools, and they can't do roads. And what the heck else is government supposed to do if not those three things?
Yeah.
And I think Californians are waking up to it. They're trying to form their own state now with the state of Jefferson, and I totally endorse that idea. And because the state is a failed state.
The Senate will never approve it. They don't want two Californias.
Well, they
And
might not
that's,
have a
uh,
choice.
and-
Two more.
Michael, that's
We
half-
just start
US
flying
Senate.
our flags.
The
That's
U.S.
it.
Well,
half the problem is
Texas
that,
can get
is
by
that
with
there
that.
are so many people. When you think about California, for instance, and they were coming up with the pension problem with CalPERS, that when you really do the math on active and retired civil servants, CalPERS, CalSTRS, and 148 other unions, you're talking about 40% of the voting population whose paycheck depends on government collecting that $500 billion a year it does in California and state and local to do nothing but pay them. And so, to your point, out of a $500 billion a year, we can't get $2 billion for a reservoir. We can't get $10 billion for
You're
roads.
bringing up really interesting economic questions, and of course, whoever wins in November, Libertarian, Republican, or Democratic, or who knows, they're going to have to deal with economic problems. We just came off the Brexit, the Britain vote to withdraw from the European Union, which knocked the markets down 4 or 5% the day after. The British pound went down 11% to a record, modern record low. But 2 days after that, the New York Stock Exchange, the Standard & Poor's 500, the Dow, the NASDAQ, all made new all-time highs in this country. And gold is rallying at the same time. And bonds are rallying at the same time, the lowest interest rates in our lifetimes and probably since the
5,000
founding of the Republic. I'm guessing that this might be the Lehman moment, or the Bear Stearns moment in front of the Lehman collapse, to use an analogy going back to the 2008 debacle. What's your take on what the new president will have to deal with once elected?
Well, there is no question in my mind, for instance, my average portfolio for clients at this point is 50% bonds, 30% cash, and 20% stock. So that gives you an idea. I think the bonds are going to zero. They have been the best 10-year bonds in the U.S. are going to zero. Right now, they just backed off a 1.6. Over $12 trillion of government debt around the world is a negative interest rate. We are a magnet. So the reason that money has been pouring into the U.S. is that we still have a positive interest rate, whether it's our dividends or on stock, or whether it's paying a positive rate of return. Is that a bubble? Oh my God, is it a bubble? We have valuations on the S&P. They don't say we're in a recession. We're going on 2 years now of revenue decline in the stock market of the S&P 500. That's never been priced in.
Revenue, sales revenue?
Decline.
Yeah, okay.
And that's never been priced in. So as the market's been going up, the actual value has been going through the moon, and we haven't seen this valuation. Gap earnings on the S&P 500 put it about 26 times earnings, when it should be about, under these circumstances, about 13, which means that the S&P should get cut in half. And all that's keeping it from that place to this, to where we are today, is a massive amount of central bank money, trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars, all coming to the U.S. So when that day...
Which, of course, is the cause of the 1%, 99% problem, because what's happening with all of the central bank money being created, it has to go somewhere. It's not going being dropped from helicopters, at least not yet, to go into the pockets of ordinary working stiff citizens. It's got to go somewhere. Who has the credit rating to be able to borrow, because they put it into the market by making it available to be lent? Who has the credit ability to borrow all that kind of money? It's the 1%. Mm-hmm. So the 1% are borrowing all of the newly created money and putting it into the bond market and the stock market, and getting richer and richer as time goes on.
Yeah.
Well, the appearance here is reality. When you people still, because you talked about being dumbed down, and I think that dumbing down is intentional. I think we've intentionally dumbed down our populace so that they're more easily led, and our politicians rely on stupid people. If you just take a surface look at the world and don't look at the economic underpinnings of what's our debt now, 20 trillion? I don't know what it is. Probably
Close.
Tomorrow it's 21.
19 to 20.
You look around the world and you look at the uncertainty in Europe, and you look at the decades of basically lost decades in Japan. You look at uncertainty in China. You think, well, America's where I should put my money. I mean, as long as you don't look behind the curtain, it's pretty obvious.
Well, even in
why,
reality,
you know,
it's the
we're
cleanest.
doing it.
It's the cleanest dirty shirt.
Well,
It's
the
cleanest
problem,
dirty shit.
the issue really is that the U.S. still controls its own currency.
Yeah.
The Eurozone, and that was the real significance of Brexit, was that breaking of that that breaking of that bond that forces a strong country like the UK that's doing all the right things and saddling it with Italy or France, who need, or Greece obviously, who needs the strength of the UK and Germany. So you start carving off the strong pieces, and all you're left with are the weak pieces. And we see it's the same phenomenon we see in our cities like Detroit, where, as they say, the makers all go away, leaving only the takers. And when that happens,
it's the truest story of communism
it,
played out on an economic scale,
Yeah.
and it's why I've always been, I'm a philosophical anarchist basically. And I only say that because I have no clue how to live in a really formed anarchistic world. All the anarchy I see is when socialist things fail and nobody knows where to go for a job or what to do the next day. Nobody's prepared for that kind of thing. And I think that we're starting to see the reasoning behind it. We're going to have a calamity and there's going to be death around that calamity.
I will say this, it can be so doom and gloom. I'm actually fairly optimistic at this point. What's really happened is we have built an economic structure and a society parallel to the existing one. And it is doing fine. And so we're seeing it across all of these things, whether you want to talk about cryptocurrency or Airbnb or Lyft and Uber, whether you want to talk about the Hyperloop, SpaceX,
So what you're
driverless
saying,
cars.
what you're saying is shopping trumps politics.
We are moving.
The economy trumps the damage politicians can do in the long run.
You can always count on incentives and disincentives. I mean, that was the Adam Smith liberal philosophy. And what has happened is one of the things that was interesting about this, rosy jobs report is all the excise taxes are down, the income tax, all the tax receipts are down. And what's really happened is the economy has moved underground. Michael might sell his book to me. I gave him $15, and
When
we're
the
good.
Soviet Union fell, the only real market was the black market.
Yeah.
And the black market in California right now is astronomical.
Yeah, sure it is.
Well,
And that's
it is-
a result of those high taxes.
Yeah.
It is everywhere, and one of in our notes we're talking about Italian banks, bad loans making up like 17% of the portfolio. I lived in Italy almost 40 years ago, and even then the bureaucracy was so oppressive that there was a huge underground economy. Now, in Italy, there are companies in Italy that employ 1,000 people that aren't on the books anywhere. I mean, with the high-rise office buildings, people coming to work, command and control structure, communications there. So what happens is you're right, the underground economy, if it isn't the equal of the above-ground economy, and I think you should flip-flop that, because which one's dirtier? It's the official economy is dirtier than the underground
economy. It's not
economy.
necessarily the illegal economy either. One of the things that was so fascinating, my page is called Minute Dots, which is about connecting dots, minute dots. Since 2009, over 100% of all the jobs created in the economy were 1099 jobs. Which means we actually lost
When somebody
W-2 jobs.
fills out a 1099.
And why do we do it? I'm a 1099 guy. And why do I do that? Because the tax code favors me.
And
And
some
why is
people
the
that are working
government-
off
the
the books
jobs?
don't bother with 1099.
And-
So I'm going
and-
to tell you what the black market also consists of. You talk about the legal side of it. It consists of waiters, waitresses, and anybody who gets a tip.
You bet.
It consists of Uber drivers who make $6 to $10 an hour, and they are black. The whole Uber business is an
Airbnb.
underground economy. It's a black market economy.
Sure.
And most people don't realize that. They don't think of those. eBay is a black market economy. And these things are huge.
Swap meets, garage
And those are not
sales.
even in
Garage
eBay.
sales.
And one of the things we were Peter Thiel was on the news today endorsing Trump. Peter Thiel was one of, they called them the PayPal mafia, because Elon Musk was one of the original founders, and Peter Thiel, and all those folks that got really rich off of PayPal, which was underground banking. It's not in the banking system. And what is the thing that government has done better than anything is seize bank accounts.
Will Bitcoin take over the financial system?
I don't think it's going to be Bitcoin any more than AOL was the end result of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bitcoin is the beginning of
So Bitcoin is the precursor, it's the AOL, and somebody else will
Exactly.
come along
Somebody's
and do it
gonna do
better.
it.
In other
Really
words,
well. It's the TRS
people are
80.
going to replace the dollar on their own someday.
Well, it will become a basket of the currency like anything else. So the dollar will be worth so many Bitcoin.
Or ounces of gold or whatever. There will be
Exactly.
Your republic
there will be
credits
competing
are no longer
competing
honored on the planet of capital.
competing currencies regardless of what the
And so many other things that, for instance, Michael and I might say, hey, I'll give you my book if you give me yours. That's
right.
the black
Yeah.
market.
And that's why
And who
the
opposes it?
IRS
Who opposes
hates
it?
barter more than anything, because as soon as somebody, and I think Bitcoin, I agree with you, is a little bit cumbersome and a little bit too hard to understand for most people to have comfort using it. But as soon as somebody figures out a way to market price a barter transfer process,
They
then
tried that.
then
Well, and even today, for instance, PayPal just today announced a deal with Visa, which is just a process transaction. It's not a credit card. So PayPal now has a relationship with Visa that takes transactions out of the banking system. So it goes to show you that there is the winner, and the winner who will build on whatever it is that Bitcoin is doing, who manages to make this easy to buy the Bitcoin itself or whatever that cryptocurrency is, and easy enough to exchange it with a very transparent, we look on Forex today and I say, oh, okay, the euro's $1.10 to the dollar. Happens every day. So that's not difficult.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned Peter Thiel endorsing Trump this evening.
how could he? Shame on him.
He is known in Silicon Valley as something of a libertarian, along with Walter Block. He's not in Silicon Valley, but a longtime libertarian. And then the former VP, vice presidential candidate of the Libertarian Party from a few years ago, is turned into a Trumpster. What but by the same token, you've got people like Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney and Glenn Beck all saying that they're going to think about at least voting for Gary Johnson. What is it about some of the most rabid or the most public libertarians not being behind Gary Johnson, while you've got some moderate Republicans and a few, even a few Democrats, I think, saying, I'm going to look at Gary Johnson. What's going on there?
If you're Jeb Bush, you want Hillary to win. The system goes on, and you get your shot as long as that one-party system stays, established. I think Thiel is that was a home run. Thiel is openly gay, and so that addressed a sort of a prejudice issue that Trump, carries around with him. But Trump, where Trump is right when it comes down to it, he's right on taxes, and believe it or not, he's right on trade. He is. Trade agreements, as I say, are anti-free trade.
Well, if you take a look at trade agreements and say that these agreements are not really about trade, they're about a bunch of other stuff, including favoritism for crony capitalists. Yeah, I would agree.
And the other one.
Well, how can I still don't. How can he be a
immigration.
protectionist and better for trade?
Well,
How can he be
he's saying that
protectionist and better for trade?
what you're saying, and I think what Trump, well, I'm not sure what Trump is saying, who knows what he's saying, but what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that the NAFTA and TPPA and all of the rest of these trade agreements are not really about trade so much as they are about protecting crony capitalist,
Crony
or I would
socialist.
call it crony
Crony
socialist
socialist.
concerns in the various countries that are signatories.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where Thiel would naturally come down, who has been an incredible entrepreneur, an incredible futurist, if you will, that he is looking at between Hillary and Trump. And I have no doubt Johnson, but I just don't think he believes Johnson can win. And I think that
So you think
Thiel needs to be where the business is.
Yeah, you think he's making a business judgment.
I do.
Okay. What about Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz addressed the convention last night, gave a thundering oration about the value of conservatism and we all need to hang together, but did not endorse the Donald, much to the consternation of the people at least the Trumpsters at the convention. He said, vote your conscience. Is that an implicit endorsement for the one guy who does support the Constitution, namely Gary Johnson?
If you're looking at me on this one, here's what I have to say.
Okay, I'll look at John.
One comment about Ted Cruz. I'm not a Republican. My wife is. So she tunes in just about now, and she's tuning in, I think, right at this moment. She starts to follow around the convention. and she hates I'm a news junkie. Ted Cruz just gives her the heebie-jeebies. He is a creepy dude, and
He looks too much like that guy in the Addams Family.
And right from get-go, she'll tune into a Sunday morning talk show or Good Morning, one of those things, and boy, she looked at that guy and went, "This guy is just," had a visceral reaction to him.
A lot of people have that kind of reaction, and we've talked about this many times on the show, that people who know him still hate him. No, they're all politicians, and I think that the problem is that we have a tendency to have other species that are not human carry human characteristics. We do it with dogs. We saw that dog's happy. We even talk about that mountain is majestic, or that tree has gravitas. And I think the problem is that we have a tendency to imbue politicians with human characteristics, whereas we need to understand that politics isn't about anything human. Even a libertarian president isn't an evil in the fact that it's a presidency. And so it's about power, pure and simple. This whole thing is about the transfer and holding of power.
And speaking of
And
power,
we have to
we only
understand
have a couple minutes left. I think we need to pay our respects and pay our homage to the fact that the one news story that has not been covered in the last week due to the Melania plagiarism story and all of the other nonsense stories
And
that
something
are being,
about Kim Kardashian and
Yeah.
real important stuff.
is that 73 civilians were droned, killed by bombs, by American bombings in Syria in the last week. Not covered, to my knowledge, by the American media at all. Obama is continuing the warfare started by the Bush administration, continued with the encouragement of the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who advocated going into Syria, advocated going into Libya, which both have turned into basket cases. Libya is a basket case. Syria is now the home base for what we call ISIS, which is mercenaries that were hired by us originally to fight mercenary, as the FBI or the CIA versus the Department of Defense. That's what that's where those people got their start. We have to pay homage to the fact that we have made one hell of a mess in the Middle East, and somebody's going to have to clean it up. That's the show. See you again next week, same time, same place. Libertarian Counterpoint on YouTube, on Channel 17 in Sacramento, cable channels all over the place, and of course at accesssacramento.org, streaming live at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. Thursday, noon Friday, and 4 a.m. Saturday.